Good afternoon, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Let me deliver my sincere gratitude to Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, Government of Japan, for organizing this seventh special planning platform. I'm very much honored to deliver a keynote speech in this renowned meeting. I'm Kazuko Ishigaki, Regional Director of UN Habitat Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, what we call ROAP. ROAP supports 42 countries in Asia-Pacific region, leading 15 country offices, and implemented 90 projects across 18 countries in 2024. So let me share the screen. So in my presentation, I will first share the draft strategic plan 2026-2029, which is currently discussed by member states, and then explain regional consultation process. And lastly, I will briefly share the Asia-Pacific regional trends from the perspective of draft strategic plan. So I will begin with the explanation on the planning process of a strategic plan. We, UN Habitat, have been discussing the new strategic plan internally and with member states. The recent discussion with the member states was Executive Board in December last year, and the member states retreat in January, and the consultation at ad hoc working group in February. Now, atmosphere of Nairobi among permanent representatives is, if I use executive director's expression, strategic plan structure is almost complete with important elements all included. The discussion on retreat centered on, for example, terminology such as the definition of a vulnerable group and marginalized group, so big disagreement was not expressed by any. However, as you might know, the permanent representatives are most often from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and not from line ministries. Therefore, we'd like to have your opinions from the perspective of line ministries. And currently, we are preparing for Executive Board in March. Input from this meeting will be integrated in the discussion as part of regional consultation. Then the process will continue through Habitat Assembly, ECOSOC, and toward General Assembly. So I will briefly explain the structure of draft strategic plan. The plan is very simple, straightforward, and very short. So I'm confident to say that the plan has an easily understandable structure. The strategic focus is adequate housing, land, and basic services for all, including the urgent transformation of informal settlements and slums. This will be the entry point for 3 impact areas, which are equitable and inclusive prosperity for poverty eradication, prevention, response, recovery, and reconstruction in the context of humanitarian crisis, and environment and climate action. Basically, these 3 impact areas are the same with the 4 pillars of current strategic plan. Poverty and prosperity were combined while climate and crisis remain. The difference is that we will approach these impact areas through our strategic focus, adequate housing, land, and basic services for all, including the transformation of informal settlements and slums. To bring impact, strategic plan prepares 5 means of implementation, which are integrated urban and territorial planning, management, investment and finance, participatory multi-level governance and localization of the SDGs, knowledge, data, digitization, and capacity development, partnerships, coalitions, advocacy, and communication, and effective resource mobilization. Among them, integrated urban and territorial planning is the measure this forum has discussed and continues to discuss with all interested organizations. It's very important because long-term urban and territorial planning and design underpins delivery of the positive outcomes of urbanization across social, economic, ecological aspects as envisioned in the new urban agenda. The implementation of the plan will be guided by a set of brief documents, bridging the strategic plan with the annual work program and budget. Global action plans for each means of implementation will be developed as required to work towards expected outcomes. Regional implementation guidance will be planned, tailoring the outcomes to specific regional contexts. Therefore, we'd like to discuss with you how to implement strategic plan in the context of each country and region. So each context of your country. I named the regional consultation process as a roll-up roadmap to Baku because the next World Urban Forum, our important conference, is to be held in Baku in May 2026. The focus of the next forum will be how to implement a new strategic plan. Therefore, this roadmap is closely related to strategic plan. In the roadmap, especially this year, we are planning to brief new strategic plan to enhance understanding and engagement, and receive input for regional implementation to consider how to design and implement our projects on the ground. We, UN Habitat, will continue to deliver a consistent message as UN Habitat in every global, regional, and national events. So in this opportunity, I announced that there are critical regional events this year. In April, UN SCAP will organize 81st Commission session at Bangkok. The UN SCAP will gather for the first time under the main theme, regional cooperation for resilient and sustainable urban development in Asia and the Pacific. Given its strategic importance, our executive director is planning to attend the meeting. In August, ASEAN Sustainable Urbanization Forum will be held in Kuala Lumpur. In October, Asia Pacific Ministerial Conference on Housing and Urban Development, what we call APUNCHUT, will be held in Penang, Malaysia. So lastly, I will share the regional trends and challenges in Asia and the Pacific region. First, rapid urbanization has been ongoing in the region. The urban population is expected to grow from 2.5 billion in 2023 to 3.4 billion in 2050. Housing and infrastructure development are not catching up with this urbanization speed. Cities like Mumbai, Jakarta, Manila, and Dhaka are expanding very rapidly, leading to a surge in informal settlement. There is a data that the Asia Pacific has the largest number of people living in slums and informal settlements. The second trend is related to climate change and environmental degradation. Asia and the Pacific are highly susceptible to climate change impacts, including flood, cyclones, and heat waves. Many large coastal cities in the region make them extremely vulnerable to climate change-related hydrological risk, which disproportionately affects slum dwellers and informal housing. These populations are often located in disaster-prone areas with poor infrastructure, making them highly vulnerable to environmental hazards. I often hear strong needs for climate change adaptation, resilient housing, and inclusive urban development. Third point is social inequality. Economic disparities are pronounced, with an estimated 233 million people in the region living on less than $1.9 a day below the international extreme poverty line. The economic divide is a bottleneck for adequate housing for low-income segments of people and limits access to essential services and creates social unrest, highlighting the urgent need for inclusive urban policies. The fourth point is the governance issue. At least 65% of SDG targets are directly linked to the work and mandate of local and regional governments. There is a growing need for integrated governance and effective policy implementation at local and regional levels. The last point is related to this governance issue. The region is not on track to achieve SDGs. Goal 11 is behind, and Goal 13 is regressing. I pointed out general common trends, but the outstanding characteristics of this region is its diversity. The region has some of the richest and poorest countries in the world in terms of GDP. Compared to other regions, mixture of high income, middle income, and low income countries is outstanding. In addition, the region has geographically disadvantaged countries such as landlocked developing countries and small island developing states. Some of these countries are the least developing countries. Countries in transition also have difficulty in political situations. Refugees and displaced populations, particularly in countries affected by conflict or environmental disasters, face some actual shortage of safe housing options, increasing their vulnerability to homelessness. We need to continue designing programs and projects attentive to these differences. In middle-income countries, housing quality is a challenge. In countries such as Philippines, India, and Indonesia, more than 30% of population are living in slums. Low-income countries tend to have a larger share of slum population. Informal settlements often lack basic services such as clear water, sanitation, electricity, leading to increased vulnerability to health and climate-related risks. Regarding housing, even high-income developed countries, affordability is a big challenge. For example, in my country, Japan, roughly 10% of population spend more than 40% of income on housing. Housing equality is a special concern for low-income people in every country, both developed and developing. As I said in the beginning, the economic divide is a bottleneck for adequate housing for low-income segments of people and limits access to essential services. In sum, the demand for affordable housing far exceeds supply in most major urban centers across the region. Economic disparities, rising property prices, and the inability of low-income groups to access formal housing markets exacerbate housing insecurity. In many cities, the formal housing market is largely inaccessible for low-income households, pushing them into informal settlements. To conclude, the Asia and the Pacific region is facing complex challenges related to housing, slum upgrading, and homelessness due to rapid urbanization, economic inequality, and climate risks. Reflecting from our long experience of project implementation in the region, and in consideration for the new strategic plan focused on global housing crisis, I'd like to point out the following challenges. The first, data collection on slums and housing is challenging on the ground. We need to strengthen data collection to design evidence-based projects and track progress. Second, housing and urban problems are cross-sectoral issues. So we need to discuss with and work together with not only our traditional line ministries, such as Ministry of Public Works or Ministry of Urban Development, but also ministries such as Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Social Welfare. Because, for example, housing is an important social policy as well as part of finance and economic policy. Cross-sectoral partnership in each country needs to be promoted. The third, we often listen to the needs of technical support and capacity building of local governments. To realize the SDGs and New Urban Agenda, localization efforts are increasingly needed. Technical capacity building and policy advice functions should be enhanced. Then lastly, I believe climate change and gender must be mainstreamed in housing and urban policy, especially in the originally disaster-prone Asia-Pacific region. Climate change adaptation is a serious challenge. In collaboration with member states and our partners, we are eager to further elaborate how we can work towards ensuring safe, affordable, and dignified housing and living environments for all segments of people and contribute to delivering transformative long-term impact for vulnerable communities in the region. So I'm very much looking forward to listening to and participating in today's discussion. Thank you very much for your kind attention.